Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the PG show on election night. So thank you all for joining us. I am joined today by Jay with Unfair Sports. How you doing?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me. Love to sit up and talk some Sooner football, especially on election day.
Yeah, it seems like an election year. It's an extremely long year. It's a stressful year, stressful day. So glad to get this behind us so that we can just worry about National Signing Day coming up, an early National Signing Day. So,
Oh yeah.
but let's go ahead and let's just jump into our first topic. OU loses to Baylor 38-35 on Saturday, and listen, in my opinion, the sky's not falling. But for a lot of Sooner fans out there, the sky's falling. You lose a game where Richard Reese is out primarily a lot of the game for Baylor because he was dealing with flu symptoms, and so that's kind of a concern about how bad your run defense is because outside of Richard Reese, nobody else can really tell you who those Baylor running backs are and what they've been able to do all season. So where does OU go from here after a 5-4 start to the season?
I mean, you focus on your scheme, you focus on what you're trying to do, and then you push forward for next year. Like you're the focus right now is development and growth, and a lot of people are freaking out about what's going on with the team this season. Look, we should have known that this was going to potentially happen. Now, I would like people to stop with the false equivalencies of other teams like Sonny Dykes taking over TCU. He's been a head coach like 3 times, and he actually did really good at Cal. Remember, he got Jared Goff, the #1 draft pick. Like, that should tell you something because all of y'all think Jared Goff sucks. So, notwithstanding, we have that. And then looking at Dan Lanning going up to Oregon, which they didn't really lose anybody when Mario Cristobal left. He didn't really bring anybody with him to Miami because it was a cross-country deal. So, and then, of course, LSU just breeds talent, and heck, their last 3 coaches won national championships. So, and honestly, y'all only think one of them is good, and that's Nick Saban. The other 2 we considered as boobs. So there's no reason to actually believe that just because they're doing good, that we had a lot of turnover. We lost every lead statistical player on the team at every position. We lost every single one of them. Tackles, sacks, tackles for a loss, catches, rushing yards, rushes, throws, touchdowns, you name it, every single one of them is gone. So that's big. The comparison is still, to me, and I'll say this every time, Josh Heupel at Tennessee. He had 35 players transfer when Jeremy Pruitt got fired. 35. And that's just transferring. That didn't even include graduates and all other players, and they're still waiting on the sanctions from that. 75-year, turned it around, and now they've only lost 1 game this year. So give them a minute to get the players that they need to make it happen. It's fine. The world's not coming to an end. 1 bad year is not that bad for Sooner fans. Kind of get you back to reality.
Yeah, and they're picking right back up where Lincoln Riley left off by recruiting 5-star quarterbacks, top-tier wide receiver talent. They're bringing in tremendous running backs, but they're pulling in top-tier defensive linemen and defensive players.
Yes.
And I say defensive linemen because we got the 5-star edge rusher and PJ Adebore in this class.
Yeah.
Those were not guys that Lincoln Riley was pulling in. So I feel good at where we're at, and I can now say this now that I know a little bit more about it. I went and educated myself talking to some of the recruits. The recruits do not look at how a school is losing and say, I don't want to go there. They look at the losing and say, that is an opportunity for me to start early.
Mm-hmm.
Now, winning does play a factor because they just see winning as a winning culture, but they don't look at the losing and go, oh, well, that school's losing, so I don't want to go there anymore. Look at how Notre Dame's recruiting. They're still, number 3 in the nation? And they had a rough start to the season. So OU's going to be fine. OU fans need to stop freaking out a little bit. I know the Vasek loss, which we can just go ahead and jump into that. The Colton Vasek loss hurts a little bit because, I don't know, we lost 49-0, and we were able to go into Texas's backyard and still a guy. But listen, this is a battle, and Texas knows this. They cannot lose guys out of Westlake. They just can't. And that's a school they have been losing guys out of. Cade Klubnik, the number 1 quarterback in the country, where's he at? Clemson. They lost that wide receiver so far this year, who's currently committed to Notre Dame. I mean, am I wrong to think that that's what they need to do?
No, you're spot on. And if I'm correct, Colton Vasek was the first player out of Westlake that Oklahoma was able to get to actually say they would commit to the school. And his dad is a legacy Texas. They've got season tickets. He's at the stadium all the time. That was something that I did not believe was going to last, even when I first saw it. I mean, I did a video on it a couple of days ago, and the understanding of he's there all the time, seeing it. The only thing I believe that is that at a certain point, he was like, you know what? I think I want to do my own thing. I want to create my own. I want to do something different than what everybody else would expect me to do. And then after making that commitment and going back all the time, everybody was kind of probably ribbing him. And he was probably there like, you know what? Nah, I think I'd rather follow my dad's footsteps and make my name here at home and be close. I get it. There's no reason not to. I mean, his dad wouldn't go. I mean, as much as his dad would probably hate it, he probably wouldn't or would root for Oklahoma. I don't think he would root for Oklahoma, even when Vasek was here. They probably jab at each other on a regular basis. But you could tell that he had thoughts of wanting to do something different. But then at the same time, if you're there all the time, you're family. So I think that's what hurt him the most.
Yeah, I want to touch on this comment that Robert put here in the chat. Dindy, Overton, Hill, McDonald, Hicks, Vasek, Dindy and Overton legacies too. Listen, Dindy did not want to play in Venable's scheme, right? That's just as simple as that. And you can't dock a kid for not wanting to play in a specific way that you're going to run your defense.
Right.
Lebbeus Overton, OU did almost everything they could to win that guy. They had, from what I understand, had laid out a tremendous bag out for him. Texas A&M came in and just outbought a player. And unfortunately, as Lane Kiffin has told us, it's hard to play against that. It's hard to recruit against that. So I'm not going to dock the staff for that because I know they did everything they could to get Lebbeus Overton in here. And quite frankly, I've said it. I think Lebbeus Overton transfers this year out of Texas A&M, ends up at Oklahoma. Caden McDonald, he just went with what his gut said, right? He looked at it. He looked at the development players, and I mean, can you really dock a guy from wanting to go to Ohio State? I mean, look at the defensive linemen they've put into the league. Larry Johnson is that guy.
He is. And we got to stop doing any type of comparisons to Larry Johnson when it comes to winning recruits. We got to remember the players they put in the last 3-4 years and developed into. I mean, they may have walked in as specimens and monsters that should have, no matter who coached them, be dominant. But when you're producing players like that, I mean, they've had 3 in the last 4 years being the top 3 draft picks, or last 5 years or something of that nature. They're putting them out. That's something you can't outdo. Your best bet is to just hope that Larry Johnson doesn't have your guy in his sights, and you'll be all right. Unless he's local. If he's local, then you might win. But it's really tough when it comes to someone being in Larry's sights. Now, it's also very much an honor if you're going at the same person as Larry Johnson. And if you can win that battle, pretty darn good. But yeah, that's not something I would have expected either.
And as far as Hicks and Vasek go, I'm not really going to count them as 100% losses until after National Signing Day and they put pen to the paper. You watched Kobe McKenzie commit to Oklahoma, get flipped by Texas, and then when the new staff came in, what they do? They flipped him back to OU. So I'm not saying that's going to happen with Vasek. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm not counting anything as a loss until after National Signing Day. The other thing is, if you watch me often, you know how high I am on David Hicks coming to Oklahoma, right? I've talked to people. It sounds like he's coming here. We just need to give it time. You know, he probably went there, take some pressure off. And I see a lot of things in here about A&M and outbidding people and asking, you know, hey, like, are they going to transfer? Or was it because they're not bought in? They don't love the program. Listen, I think Texas A&M is this bad because they don't have a good coach. I don't think Jimbo is a good coach anymore because he's not willing to adapt to how college football is trending. If you notice, the reason why Saban is so great is one, he just pulls in great recruiting classes year in, year out, right? And so instead of rebuilding, you're just retooling every single year, but you've constantly got veteran leadership and veteran presence in there that knows how to run your scheme and knows how to run what you want to run. But Nick Saban is willing to adapt. He went from a pound the ball type of offense, having an awful quarterback, to I'm going to go get the best quarterback talent in the nation every single year.
Yep. And that's the difference between him and everybody else is he's gonna create competition. They tell players this all the time too. It's like, look, when we bring you in, you got a choice. Do you want to compete or not? And now that there's money involved, you can say, yeah, we'll pay you too, but you want to compete or not? Because there's no guaranteed spots. The other thing to remember about Nick Saban in comparison to everybody else out there that's coaching is that he does adapt. He brings in new coaches. They haven't had an offensive coordinator there for longer than, I think, 3 years is the longest that they've had someone there since Nick Saban first started. I think that was Jim McElwain was the OC for like 5 years. But outside of that, 2-3 years. Churn and burn, baby. Churn and burn. Give me some new coaches. Defensive coordinators, he does keep for a long time. So don't expect Pete Golding to go anywhere anytime soon. He adores him, and that's his dude. But on the offensive side, he knows that that's the one thing you have to change on a regular basis, and he brings in a new coach that's going to be a new mind. So Bill O'Brien will be gone at the end of the season. He's probably going to go hit up Scott Frost if Scott Frost can get a head coaching job at a smaller school. But that's his game. That's what he does. But from outside of that, I don't know. Like this comment from David Williams that Kobe McKenzie is no Colton Vasek. I don't know. I think Kobe could be something special. I think that they also just didn't want to just play him immediately. Just throw young players out there, just throw them out there. Sometimes you got to make sure that, they're fitting well in the scheme, or they're at the size you need them to be. Sometimes it takes a year to get to the size. Colton Vasek's 2.25. It's probably going to take him the summer. He'll probably finish at like 240 his freshman year, and then he may go up to the 260 range with speed by his sophomore, junior year. But we'll see what McKenzie and them looks like. We'll see what those recruits from last class that are freshmen now and getting on that regimen and eating and getting in shape, we'll see what they look like next year. But also remember, you got to give them time. When he was at Clemson, it took him like 3 years to get them to a top 5 defense. You got to get their players in there. You got to get them in the right shape. You got to get them understanding the scheme and knowing where to go and not looking confused all the time. Then you'll see results, especially when you're doing a complex defense. Sometimes those complex defense can be tough on young players. If you could do something simple and let them just use athleticism, I think that's what we did the first 3 games anyway. We literally just out-athleted everybody. Then we started going against teams that have athletes like we do. And so now you got to get creative. And so I think that's where you'll see the changes. There's a lot of players coming, though, especially during Bedlam. We're going to have a lot of recruits going to be in town. And that'll be a lot of people for us to talk about over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I want to get to this comment about Hicks is not going to OU. Why would he? To learn how to lose. No other even defensive lineman there. Okay.
Oh, really?
No. Because
oh, okay.
I understand, because listen, Jay and I were just talking about this. It's not, which I don't understand why OU fans are getting so upset about Todd Bates not being able to land top 10 defensive line talent. Because realistically, outside of 2020, he was not doing that at Clemson. Now, BV was doing a lot of recruiting at Clemson. Todd Bates was not. Todd Bates had a really good 2020 class. However, what Todd Bates was doing was he was developing the smaller talent really well. And that's what he was doing. He was putting them in the league.
Right.
And so if Hicks sees what Brian Breesy is going to be this year, probably a top 10 pick in the draft, a DeMonte Capehart, what he's going to be, or Peyton Page or Trey Williams, then he certainly wants to be at OU. Because when he looks at it, he knows that Todd Bates is going to be able to develop him. Same thing about, who was that recruit that we lost to Alabama? I can't think of his name right now.
Jordan Renaud.
Jordan Renaud had his top 2 to be Alabama and Oklahoma. He was looking at development, and that's the 2 schools he came down to. Who could develop him best? Do you blame him for going to Alabama over Todd Bates? I don't, because realistically, both places are going to develop you to be an NFL talent.
And it'd been the
Just
same thing if he was at Clemson. And Clemson, that 2020 class that they produced at Clemson, oh God, go look at it. Go look at all those players that they have in that class. Clemson is considered having the best defensive line in the country. They may not have the secondary right now, but they've got the best defensive line. So go back and look at that class. They're going to get the players they need. One player to look at, I put out a video this morning actually for Ashton Sanders as well as Marcus Strong. Go look at the tape that I have of Marcus Strong. That's the type of players that they're going to look for. He has no stars right now, but he is a player that if you watch his tape, you're going to be like, oh, why is he not rated? And it's probably because he's at a small school and he didn't go to any camps. You're going to see players like that, those diamonds in the rough. Isaiah Simmons, we talked about this before, PG. Isaiah Simmons was one of those players in Hays, Kansas, that Venables found and was like, dude's an athlete. I want to try him out. And I remember watching the playoffs, and I'm just like, wait, who's this 6'4" safety linebacker thingy that's running around the field, knocking everybody's head blocks off? That was Isaiah Simmons, and now he's doing it in the NFL. Jaron Cannon could be the same way. He'll be monstrous when it comes to that. But there's a comment in here from Matt about Peyton Bowen. Just saw a note online that he's not going to the Texas game this weekend. So something not to really worry about.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's jump into a little bit of Texas recruiting updates, because this is something that is pretty big right now, pretty prevalent amongst college football with all of the news that's been landing. We've talked about it. Anthony Hill decommits from Texas A&M. We expect him to go to Texas, and a lot of people expected that from Texas as well. Now, the timing of this, I think, threw everybody off guard. I mean, would you not agree, Jay? I mean, who expected him to do this on a Monday? I didn't.
Yeah, it's all over the place, dog.
Yeah. Listen, him and Colton must have been texting each other saying, all right, is today the day? Texas has a tremendous opportunity ahead of themselves to really make a statement this weekend on the recruiting trail and amongst the conference in the Big 12. They can put themselves in a position to go play in the Big 12 Conference Championship if they win this game. Or they can put themselves in a position to be like they have been the past couple of years and walk into two games that are going to be pretty tough and lose those. Now, on the recruiting trail, you guys have heard me say it. They're bringing in 5-star tight end Deuce Robinson. Linebacker Anthony Hill's coming in unofficial. You got DeAndre Moore Jr., Marcus Deal, Janali McDonald, Justin Benton, Jaden Greathouse, Leona LaFou, who somebody corrected me earlier. He is committed. I think I said that he wasn't committed, but he is committed to Texas. And then you've got Akana there, and they do expect to have Vasek there as well. This is a tremendous recruiting weekend for Texas, because right now you're at probably one of the hottest teams on the recruiting trail. The Anthony Hill stuff, I think Texas is in 100% favor for. I would not be shocked, though, if LSU and Miami try to swoop in on that recruitment.
Oh, no, I can see that. That's what you're going to see. You're going to see a lot out of these bigger schools that's focused on, like, for example, I think my favorite thing is anyone that even in trolling in here of, oh, why would you want to go somewhere where you're going to lose and be a loser, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Miami is killing it in recruiting right now. Has anybody watched Miami play? Like, at all? Like, I've watched Miami play. They're awful. They're just bad right now. But at the same time, Mario Cristobal is changing an entire culture. He's reshaping everything. Venables are doing the same thing here. Like, a lot of Sooner fans, go back and watch those games from last year if you can find the videos. Go watch them. A lot of y'all complained about a lot of the stuff that was happening with the team, and it looked like the team was going backwards. It looked like it regressed over the 5 years that we had Riley. Like, the offense was doing everything, and the defense was just going backwards. I did like the one thing that Grinch did was trying to get everybody to get turnovers. He had a calculation. You get so many turnovers, you get so many wins. I like the idea of going after those turnovers. I'm hoping that we focus on that a little bit moving forward. But the one thing that we are doing that's working, we are actually doing we're getting tackles for loss. And I think the tackles for loss are a big deal long term, because that was the one thing that all of Venables' teams were really good at. Against Baylor, we had 8 tackles for a loss. The problem is they're just not coming at the right times, and they're not coming in the right combinations. But 8 tackles for loss in the game, it's pretty damn good. tells you that they're starting to understand some of the concepts and they're getting back there. They're just not closing yet. And it takes time. Learning how to close, learning how to be a champion, you got to learn that. And it's not something that ever comes overnight. And that's the reason why you don't have, unless you have a student that goes out there and wins the entire game for you with basically no NFL player around you. It takes, so those 8 tackles for a loss and the way that we're in the top 15 in the nation in tackles for a loss, that tells me, oh, the defense is going in the direction that they were at Clemson. We've just got to do more closing. We got to get bigger dudes and get guys that are right there at the size that we need to execute on everything. So keep an eye out for that.
And that's why if you listen to me on Ty's show yesterday, one of the things I brought up was Brandon Drum's stat. If you take out 9 plays on the running game for Oklahoma, they actually played some pretty damn good defense on Saturday. No. And it's not to say that, you take out those 9 plays and the game's different. No, that's not what I'm saying. Take out those 9 plays and look at the improvement on the defensive side of the ball. Outside of those 9 plays, they looked competent knowing what they were doing. They just happened to mess up on 9 plays.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
that's really
those
what
9
it
plays
is, right?
changed the game.
Right. And that's the key thing to think about. It's little mental things. It's those little things that cost you those little errors, those small ones. It's usually the ones that ruins it for you. And the good thing is that once they start to tool that up and they get the players in there that they can quickly tool into it, it'll be a different animal. And so that when it comes to the recruits, though, Bedlam's going to be huge. It's going to be a lot of big names here. A lot. I'm wondering if Damian Sanford's going to join Hicks out there. I haven't seen anything official, but I know David Hicks, it will be at Bedlam next week. Not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday. That's still, official visit is still listed, which is fascinating that he commits to Texas. He brings his commitment up from the Under Armour game in January, and then he commits, but his official visit is still on the books. Like, it just never changed. That was always fascinating to me. And I know that was one big thing for you, is that you still see Hicks flipping this direction. I don't know personally, but signs do look like that he's uncertain and that there is a chance. I'll say that the door is open. The question is going to be, he's going to walk through it.
Listen, and the biggest indicator is Texas A&M really wasn't in the decision for him until probably an hour before he went to go commit, right? That tells you the man had his mind made up before he went to go commit. He's not sold yet. So OU's going to be fine. Todd Bates,
keep saying it. Yeah, we keep saying it over and over. He's going to be fine. So yeah, but yeah.
Listen, we should have listened to Brent Venables when he told Joe Castiglione this year, hey, in 3 years, we'll be in a national championship.
And when he gets there, I just want to hear all the fans just apologize, because the beauty of that is that the 3rd year here will be the last year in the Big 12.
Yeah. And then you're going to...
Because I've had a few people jump in my comments and say, I don't think we'll be fine and good in the SEC. I'm like, that'll be in 3 years. We won't have the same players from the Riley regime here at that point. It'll be flipped over by that time. Most of those kids will be done graduated or went pro.
Yeah. And let me tell you just how good this 2024 class is going to be, because we have stressed about it a lot. 2024 is the year for Todd Bates and Brent Venables to really get it together. I've done my calculations of what I think this class is going to look like in terms of commits for OU. You've got the 5-star defensive lineman, David Stone. I think that one's a pretty good lock. You have Zena.
He misses home. He's homesick.
Yeah. Zena Yumio Ozulu. If we get Michael Hawkins, we're getting Zena. That's a 4-star edge. Williams, I'm going to get this last name wrong. Nawaneri, a 4-star edge rusher from Lee Summit. You have Nigel Smith, the 4-star defensive lineman. I just named off 4 defensive linemen that are 3 of them are scratching the surface of 5-star. But I just named 4 defensive linemen while everybody's out here screaming and hollering that they can't go get defensive linemen. Listen, maybe
we got a couple more. Too. There's Kansas State commit Jordan Allen.
Yep.
He's one that received the offer from us recently, and I believe he may be doing a visit soon. even though he is, and looks like Levy's recruiting him, which is interesting, but he's a 6'4" edge / tight end, and I think he wants to potentially play both sides of the ball. And another one
I
that
think he's going to be a tight end. I think that's why Levy's recruiting him, because we don't
Yeah.
have a tight end in this class.
we not anymore. Well, unless they have Cade McIntyre play tight end, which I think he can do either one, linebacker or
I think you put
he's a
Cade
big dude.
McIntyre on the defensive side of the ball.
He's supposedly he's a monstrous linebacker too. So I went back at his film and he's really good. But another one to keep your eye out on is a small town guy, 3-star. I'm gonna do a full video on him. I'm gonna show some of his highlights probably sometime tomorrow. But Taylor Wing, he's out of Nolensville, Tennessee, small town, and Brandon Drum has been saying that he's a player that potentially they're looking at right now. So Nolensville, Tennessee, they think that he should be rated higher if he was in a bigger city, but because he's in such a small town and he probably doesn't go to camps, which is usually what happens to these small town kids, they just don't do it. 6'6", 235 pounds, defensive end, edge. Imagine that size coming. That's someone that if we offer him, we may win him. Like, he's got a lot of small schools, a lot of G5 schools hitting him up. But I watched his tape. He can move. And I think that's probably a player that they will potentially go after. If they lock him up, we'll be able to he's already got some size. All you gotta do is put an additional 10 pounds on him to start at edge. Might be something. And that's your 4-man front right there.
Yeah, which they're going to go to that 3-man. And let me tell you, if they get Ashton Sanders, he's starting next year in that 3-man front at the nose tackle position.
Oh, I can see that. Totally. 100%.
Oh, he's so big. And he's strong. He's strong. If you go back and look at him, he's strong. So
yeah, and Jacob Lacey did a visit recently. Did you look at him?
Yes, Jacob Lacey, the Notre Dame
defensive lineman,
Yep.
6'2", 290. He'll be a senior.
And here's the other thing. We're so worried about recruits, but we haven't even seen what the portal's going to bring us this year, because guys are just now starting to enter the portal. And it's the same thing for Texas, because I guarantee you, if Texas didn't get Vasek, they were going into the portal for an edge rusher, which, let me be honest, they're still probably going into the portal for an edge rusher, because
December 1's going to be absurd.
Yes. I mean, listen, James Madison is going to put out great linebackers and great defensive linemen out of that class. They're not staying on that team. Not after the season they just had. And then you've said it before, Jay. I mean, there's that kid out at Albany that's just that you really like.
Versa. Oh my God. That dude is a monster at Florida State. Oh my God.
Yeah, so there's going to be opportunity in the transfer portal, and you're definitely probably going to see maybe. Yeah, you're probably going to see Bates and them try to go after other guys. Like, listen, there's still other edge rushers in this class. And I was talking to Jay about this before we hopped on. There's Samuel Mpemba. Now, that's probably a pipe dream, but you had Samuel Mpemba. You're still Tahu Siliakana. By Job, yes, he's committed to Michigan State, but maybe OU tries to sneak in that one a little bit more. There's also Chindavian Bradley out of Platte City, Missouri. Maybe they try to go after him. There's still options, and there's still guys that they could try to go in, flip, and go after. And you know what? If they miss, they can just go hit the transfer portal where they know there's going to be plentiful guys. And the great thing about the transfer portal is you can go get guys that you know how to run your scheme at a Division I college football level.
Yep.
So,
and keep your eyes out for that portal, man. That's gonna be a big thing. And David Williams with this question here about, I'm actually typing something up. I'd rather respond to it. Us being resident, yeah, and getting there in 3 years. Jackson Arnold will be the starting quarterback in 3 years, guaranteed.
Oh yeah,
he'll be a Heisman candidate at that point because of the way that he plays. He can run and he can pass. Imagine him out there doing that, and then all of these young players we're bringing away is going to be a monster. Everybody's trying to say things about Anthony Evans. Anthony Evans will be here. I think he's going to come here just so that he can be one of those players that'll stand out immediately. You'll have him. And I think Jalil Farouk should be a senior at that point. He'll probably be a senior at that point. imagine all of that talent out there with Jackson Arnold slinging it. Now, that's not knocking on Nick Evers or even Dylan Gabriel, but I think that Jackson is a step up on them. I think Nick will really get a year to show himself, to prove, give him like a prove year, and then Jackson Arnold's going to go out there and dominate. He's going to be a Heisman candidate, period. He's got all the intangibles and the ability to be that. And so that's in 3 years. At that point, they'll have this line set. All the people from the 2022 class, as well as the 2023 class, will be all up to speed to where they'll have that natural progression of moving from one of the worst defense in the league to a middle of the pack defense, which next year they'll probably be middle of the pack. Don't expect them to be top 10, to closer to top 25. Probably top 25 that third year, which would make them more of a candidate to go to the national championship.
Yeah, and you talked about it. Jackson Arnold is a phenomenal talent. Kids are going to see him, and they're going to want to come play here. There's a 2024 guy, Michael Hawkins, that's currently crystal balled to come to OU, that he's probably going to be really good too. And he might not get to start over Arnold, but listen, he's going to drum a lot of excitement, and he's going to bring his own guys in 24. And in 25, there's that 5-star tight end that plays in Allen, Texas with Michael Hawkins, and they want to play with each other. So you would bet that if we can land Michael Hawkins, we have a really good shot to land a 5-star tight end, which, Jay, has OU ever done that?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So listen, the years are coming. We have to give them time. I definitely expect to see a better defense next year. The staff's going to have a completely full year right. They're going to get a full year with the transfer portal, with the recruiting class. We're going to be fine. Mm-hmm. I get it. We're watching our rival Texas have an incredible recruiting cycle right now, but haven't we watched Texas have an incredible 2 years ahead of us?
Haven't we watched them have an incredible recruiting cycle like every year for like the last 10 years?
Well, yes, but also they're 2 years ahead of us.
Right, yeah. Sark's been there for an additional year. Sark was 5-7 last year. He had to figure it out, and he's doing that now. He's figured out what their biggest problem was. And Nick from Nino's Corner, he's a Texas guy, does some great Texas content, and he talked about this on a video I was with him a couple weeks back, and he was like, look, everybody talks about how great the Texas classes were. The problem was those classes were filled full of skills position people and not in the trenches. That's how OU, us, has beaten the crap out of Texas for years, is that we always beat them in the trenches because we always have better trench players. In the end, our trench players outdoes their trench players. That's the difference today as well right now. I mean, that last game, we didn't have a quarterback to actually play. Her General Booty had an eye incident to where he didn't get to go out there. But if with Sark, he took him a year, 5-7, he's now starting to get some players that he needs. But they still have always had great skills position. Hell, they've wasted Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson. I don't care what anybody says. That's the best 2 running backs in the country. Bijan is a monster. And Roschon, when he gets out there, he's great.
And I'm not going to lie. I feel like Texas has wasted this team this year. Because
this team was completely wasted.
You give Brent Venables that team, and my God, they're probably winning a national championship this year.
Yeah, the same kids every year. Yes.
Yeah,
that's
because
great.
One, on the Texas offense, I think nobody matches the Texas offense this year. I mean, what they have in the wide receiver room as tight ends at the quarterback position, because listen, Quinn Ewers is pretty great, but you guys got Hudson Card, Malik Murphy. I mean, listen, Texas is, I think they're going to figure it out. It's just a matter of time. And listen, they got the year. So yeah, listen, we'll give it up. You guys win the Red River Showdown this year. The recruiting rankings aren't over yet, though. So you can celebrate while you're ahead, but I still think OU finishes with the top 3 class, especially if they start to land Peyton Bowen and those guys as well. So there are a couple things that I want to go ahead and get into. And Jay, we talked about this. Jeff Scott, he's back on the market. He was fired by the University of South Florida this past weekend. He was the head coach there. He'd only won, I think, 3 or 4 games. But for those of you who don't know who Jeff Scott is, wasn't he the wide receiver coach at Clemson?
Yep. And OC.
And OC. He was recruiting tremendous talent at Clemson. What's your thoughts on us maybe trying to bring Jeff Scott in as a wide receiver coach where we have a void and potentially maybe give him that offensive coordinator role when Jeff Lebby gets a job?
Nah, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't bring him in at all. You don't want to undermine your offensive staff that way by starting to replace them with people that you've worked with in the past like that. Let Lebby do his thing. They got Washington, and Washington, hell, he's kept Pet away so far. So if he's able to do that, I wouldn't touch it right now. I don't think the wide receiver room is a problem. Now, I'd probably bring him in like as an analyst or maybe a consultant to work with Lebby, or if Lebby wants him. That's the other thing too. We gotta be careful with undermining some of your coaching staff, because at some point Lebby's probably gonna get a head coaching job. He may aspire to be a head coach one day. Maybe he doesn't, but you don't want to do that within the first year, because it makes it look like you're saying, "Hey, your offense sucks." I don't think so. I don't think that that's the case. I think that it's one of those I would probably bring him in as an analyst just to kind of help out and see where it goes from there. But I don't think I would bring him in to try to replace anybody right now. At least not say I would replacing somebody.
Well, you definitely want to try to bring him in as a recruiter. And here's why. I'm going to run through his recruiting profile a little bit. He obviously was a secondary in helping get DJ Uyunglele to Clemson. But he was able to get Tony Stewart, a 5-star offensive lineman there, DeMarcus Bowman, a 5-star running back there. He helped get Deion Kane there, the 5-star wide receiver. T. Higgins, the 5-star wide receiver, currently in Cincinnati. He's had a pretty decent year as well. When you look up and down his board, it's really high 4-star and 5-star talent everywhere you look. And so I think just bringing him in to just be able to give you a boost on the recruiting trail, I definitely think that's something you got to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. Like I said, I wouldn't mind bringing him in as an analyst. I just wouldn't throw him on as a full staffer. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't replace a position with him yet. That just won't look good for the recruits we currently have. You see what I'm saying? Like, you bring him in, kick out another wide receiver coach. How bad does that look immediately? I would totally wait on that one. But like I said, as an analyst, totally sold on him doing that.
Alabama drops it to LSU. And I posed the question a couple weeks ago. I want to get your answer on it. Is the Nick Saban dynasty coming to an end? And what I mean by this is the dynasty as we know it, with Nick Saban going out there to win national championships year in and year out and going to be up there at the top competing for them, is that over? We know that this Alabama team is going to go out there and win games every single year. But it seems like college football is catching up to Nick Saban really quickly.
Honestly, I don't think so. I think the problem with Alabama right now is they need to fire their offensive coordinator. I think that's their biggest problem. Is Bryce Young figuring out how to navigate his OC. It feels like his OC is holding him back. You get rid of Bill O'Brien and you get another coach. And we've talked about this all the time. Everybody talks about this all the time. All of us look at the plays that are called and we ask the question, what the hell kind of plays are being called? We're all confused by it, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the one thing we're thrown off by. Like, what is this? Once he moves on into the next guy, I think they'll be fine. It takes, I think the biggest problem is that with Bill O'Brien is that he tries too hard to run that pro style offense, which is beneficial to his quarterbacks at the next level, but it ain't winning in the league right now. That's not winning in college football. You can't run that pro style offense. You've got to do something a little bit more creative, and his offense is just kind of stale. So because of that, this looks like the Penn State offense he ran back when he was the coach at Penn State. He's going to get replaced. And once he gets replaced, he's fine. That's the reason why I'm not worried about Nick Saban and all of this, is that, and we talked about this before, the dude adapts. He evolves his team in general, from the offenses, from the, like I said, he hasn't had an offensive coordinator for longer than like 2 to 3 years. It's usually the longest he keeps anybody. And so he's out the door. At this point, it's going to be, I got to switch it up. We need something different because teams are figuring us out a little too easily, and now we need to go out there and do something different to win. And so, plus, they don't really have any super elite wide receivers this year. Like, all their great wide receivers are gone this past draft. Once one of their wide receivers step up next season and we're like, oh, wow, who is this kid? Then I think that we'll say, okay, Alabama's back. They're back to being as dominant. But the one thing I will agree with you on is that a lot of teams are starting to catch up in the capacity of their offenses are so explosive that it's making it harder on other defenses to stop them. The only one that's got a whole bunch of the craziest defense out there is Georgia right now. They can play man-to-man, and I don't think any other team in the country can play man-to-man with their secondary. Georgia can, and that's a difference maker in how the teams perform.
No, it is, and you definitely expect both coordinators to probably be gone. Pete Golding on the defensive side of the ball.
Golding ain't going nowhere.
You don't think he's going nowhere?
No, Saban loves him. That's one of the problems. He does have a loyalty issue sometimes, but you also remember something too. Nick Saban has his hand in that defense. Right now, he's just staying at the players that he wants. He's going to retool and get new guys to fix that. But yeah, because his last coordinator, Kirby Smart was there for like 10 years.
Yeah, but Smart was really good.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But he loved Kirby Smart. You know, those first couple years when they were kind of questionable, Kirby Smart was still there. He ain't gonna he does. Pete Golding is fine. He's young. He's gonna keep him around. So yeah.
Well, you heard it here first. He thinks he's staying here. If you guys haven't already, go ahead, hit that like button. There's 27 of y'all in here and only 9 likes on the stream. Really helps us out as content creators. But
show some love.
We'll go ahead and we'll wrap it up. Jay, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you.
Hey, you can always find me, Unfair Sports. Search for us on YouTube. Make content just like PG. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe button for PG right now. Always great stuff. Always a good time. Yeah, come find us. Come hang out with us. We'll be talking about a lot of these recruits over the next couple of weeks. There's a ton to talk about. And just like, me and PG about that transfer portal is going to be hot. Come December, you're going to be hearing about everybody decommitting. You'll be hearing visit. And I think the window is right after the national championship. It's like a 60-day window or something. You'll see a lot of kids shifting where they want to go. So keep your eyes open.
Yes, and you guys can find me obviously here on YouTube, but you guys can find me on Twitter as well, thePGshow_, or you guys can go over to any of your guys' places where you consume your podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify, Anchor. Shoot, there's a billion of them. I'm think I'm on a ton of them, but you guys can find me over there. Leave me 5 stars, give me a good review. Let me know what you like or don't like about the show. And until next time,
before you cut us off, PG, I want to point out one thing. This is one thing that Colton Vasek had liked about OU football a while back. When you hear stay the course with Brent Venables and OU's defense growth, in 2012, their defense was 57th in rush, 71st in pass, 63rd total, 48th in scoring. 2013, they were 52nd in rush, 16th in pass, 25th in total, 24th in scoring. And in 2014, 5th in rush, 2nd in pass, 1 overall, 3rd in scoring. Stay the course. We'll be just fine.